My name is Clara Hale, and I used to think the worst pain in life was being invisible. I was wrong. The worst pain is when the people you love most don't just ignore you. They destroy you with their own hands. It happened on the dullest Tuesday. No storm, no ominous music. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my old dog, Rusty, snoring by the window. Then came the knock. 2 of them. I opened the door to see 2 police officers. One tall, the other broad-shouldered, both with the calm, heavy presence of people who know their arrival is never good news. "Clara Hale," the taller one asked. My mouth went dry. "Why, yes. We received a report of illegal substances at this address. May we come in?" For a second, my brain stalled. Illegal substances. In our quiet suburban house. I thought immediately of my sister Vanessa. She'd been home for months after dropping out of college, moody, secretive, locking her door. Taking late, night calls that made the walls vibrate with whispers. But before I could answer, my mom appeared in the hallway, calm as if she'd been expecting them. "Oh, officers?" she said, her voice perfectly polite. "Clara's room is the last one on the right." I froze. The room. They didn't answer. My father stepped into view, hands in his pockets, not meeting my eyes. A cold, invisible hand gripped my stomach. The officers walked straight to my room, like they already knew the way. Rusty trotted behind them, tail wagging once before sinking back down, confused. The younger officer went directly to my dresser, pulled open the bottom drawer, and there it was. A Ziploc bag full of pills. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the world had officially jumped off the rails. That's not mine," I stammered. Behind me. My parents stood silently. When the officer asked if they'd seen me with the bag, my mom nodded slowly. "Yes, we didn't know what it was, but she's been distant." The cuffs were cold against my skin. Rusty whined softly. Vanessa leaned against the stair railing, hoodie on, phone in hand, and just watched, expressionless, as they led me out the front door. No words. No remorse. That was the night my life ended. Or at least, that's what my family wanted me to believe. The holding cell was nothing like the TV shows. No dramatic metal bars. No echoing footsteps. Just a concrete box with a hard bench and fluorescent lights that hummed like they were laughing at me. I sat there with my hands cuffed in front of me, wrists raw, staring at the floor that smelled like bleach and fear. I wasn't crying. I wasn't thinking. It was like my brain had turned to static. I kept seeing my mom's face in the hallway, calm, almost relieved, and my dad's silence, and Vanessa, standing there like a stranger who'd just watched a perfect magic trick. Hours passed without anyone talking to me. No one said what I was being charged with. No one asked if I was okay. I started to wonder if maybe this was it. If this was how you got erased from your own life. When they finally brought me to the visitation room, it felt like a stage set for a play I didn't audition for. A single table, 2 metal chairs, cinder block walls. My parents were already seated, side by side, like they were at brunch and slightly annoyed the food was late. My mom smiled faintly. "Are they treating you okay?" she asked, as if I were staying at a hotel instead of a holding cell. "They gave me a sandwich," I said flatly. She nodded like that solved everything. My dad shifted in his chair, eyes fixed on the table. "We sent some toiletries over. They'll get to you soon," he muttered. I stared at them, searching for something. Guilt, fear, even anger. But all I saw was management, like they were handling a PR crisis, not their daughter. "You know it wasn't me," I said quietly. No reaction. My mom took a slow breath. "Clara, we need to focus on what happens next. We can't change what's already happened." I almost laughed. "You mean what Vanessa did to me?" "Clara," my dad said sharply, "this isn't the time for stories." Stories. That word stung more than the handcuffs. It meant they weren't just letting this happen. They were choosing to believe her over me. I pressed my palms flat on the table. "What about Rusty? You're not putting him in a shelter, are you?" They exchanged a look. "He's fine," my dad said finally. "But he's old." and you might not be coming home anytime soon. I went completely still. You're not putting him down. It wasn't a question. My mom tilted her head. Pity in her eyes, the kind that always made me feel small. We'll do what's best, sweetheart. I didn't speak another word, because at that moment, I understood exactly what I was to them. Not a daughter, not even a person. Just a problem to be managed and removed. That night, in the cell, I finally cried. Not for myself, but for Rusty, for Grandpa, for the version of me that still believed my family might choose me one day. And when the tears stopped, I made a silent promise. If I was going down, I wasn't going down alone. The second night in the holding cell was worse than the first. The walls felt closer, the lights harsher, like the whole world had narrowed to this single, cold box. I thought of Rusty lying by the window, waiting for footsteps that wouldn't come. I thought of Grandpa in his yellow house, maybe staring at the phone, wondering why no one had told him anything. Then it hit me, the bear. On my bookshelf at home sat a silly, faded teddy bear with a tiny camera in its eye, a 30-year gadget I bought just to watch Rusty when I wasn't home. It was always there, always facing my room, and I had left the SD card in it. If Vanessa planted the drugs, if she walked into my room while I wasn't there, that camera might have caught everything. My pulse quickened, but I forced my face to stay blank. If I showed hope, I might lose it before it had a chance to grow. Because if my parents suspected I had proof, that bear wouldn't survive the night. I used my one phone call. Leah, I whispered when my best friend picked up. Listen carefully. Go to my room. Take Rusty. And the teddy bear on my bookshelf with the red bow. Inside it there's a camera, a memory card. Get it. Today. She didn't ask questions. She never did. I'm on it, she said. For the first time in 2 days, I exhaled without shaking. The next morning, my court-appointed lawyer walked in. Nora Whitman, barely older than me. Hair in a messy bun, carrying a notebook instead of a laptop. My parents probably chose her because she looked cheap and harmless. But her eyes, sharp and tired, told a different story. She sat down and said, "Claire, I need you to tell me the truth. Was it you?" "No," I said. My voice didn't even tremble. My sister planted the drugs, and my parents, they backed her up. Nora paused, scanning me like she was measuring the risk of believing me. "Do you have any proof?" I hesitated. Then, like fate had been waiting for the perfect moment, the guard came in. "You have another visitor." It was Leah. She walked in holding a small box. Inside it, Rusty's leash and the teddy bear. Nora and I watched the grainy footage on her old laptop in the private meeting room. There was Vanessa, sliding into my room like a shadow, pulling a Ziploc bag from her sleeve and tucking it neatly into my drawer. No hesitation. No guilt. Timestamp, dated, undeniable. But then, the twist. A figure appeared at the edge of the frame, reflected faintly in my mirror. My father. He was standing in the doorway the entire time. He watched her plant the drugs. He didn't stop her. He didn't say a word, and then he walked away. My chest tightened, but there were no tears this time, only clarity. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was orchestration. I felt something break and harden inside me at the same time. The little girl who used to beg for scraps of their approval was gone. In her place was someone colder, sharper, who knew exactly what she had to do. "I'm not just proving I'm innocent," I whispered to Nora. "I'm taking my life back, and they're never going to see it coming." The courthouse smelled like paper and fear. Every step I took down that beige hallway echoed too loudly, like the building wanted to remind me I didn't belong here. Nora walked beside me, steady and calm, clutching her folder like a shield. Inside the small conference room, everything was scent lights, laminate table, 4 chairs. No jury, no judge, just a pre-trial meeting to clarify the family narrative, as Nora called it. My family was already seated when we walked in. Mom, perfect as always in a pressed blouse and soft pink lipstick. Dad, stone-faced, hands clasped like he was praying to a god of appearances. Vanessa, in her usual oversized hoodie, arms crossed. shrinking into herself like that might erase the evidence she'd left behind. I sat down across from them. No one said a word. Nora opened her folder and spoke in that professional, calm tone that could cut glass. Before we discuss plea options, I need to show you something. She turned her laptop toward them and pressed play. First, the grainy footage of Vanessa entering my room, sliding the Ziploc bag into my dresser, glancing around once but never hesitating. Then the reflection in the mirror, my father, standing in the doorway watching, silent, complicit. The room went so quiet I could hear the laptop fan whirring. Mom's face went pale, like someone had drained her blood in a single breath. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Her eyes flicked to Dad, then Vanessa, then to me, like she didn't know which of us was the threat anymore. Dad didn't flinch, didn't speak, just stared at the screen as if maybe, if he stayed still enough, he could freeze time and undo the evidence. Vanessa broke first. It wasn't supposed to. She choked on her own words, then blurted. She wasn't even supposed to get arrested. Nora's voice was ice. So you're admitting it. Vanessa's eyes darted to Dad, desperate. She said it was just to scare her, to make her learn a lesson. Something in my chest twisted and released at the same time. A part of me had been waiting for this, for them to finally say it out loud, but hearing it didn't hurt less. Mom finally whispered, "Well, we were trying to protect the family." I laughed, not loud, not cruel, just a soft, broken laugh that even surprised me. Protect the family, by destroying me. No one answered. Nora calmly shut the laptop. "We'll be submitting this footage to the prosecutor," she said. "All charges against Clara will be dismissed, and the false statements you provided will be included in the report." Mom flinched like she'd been slapped. Vanessa buried her face in her hands. Dad finally spoke, voice low, flat. "This isn't helping." I leaned forward, my voice steady for the first time in my life. "No, Dad, this is helping. For once. The truth is helping me, and it's killing the version of me you all depended on. The quiet girl who would take the blame and disappear." I stood, chains clinking softly at my wrists. For the first time, I didn't feel small in front of them. As the guard led me out, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. I didn't see the invisible daughter anymore. I saw someone dangerous to the people who underestimated her. The courtroom was cold, all hard wood and echoing footsteps. When the bailiff led me to my seat beside Nora, I felt a strange calm. Not because I trusted the system, but because I finally trusted myself. Vanessa sat at the defendant's table, her hoodie gone, replaced by a beige blazer that made her look like a child playing adult. Mom sat behind her, eyes glossy but dry, like she'd been practicing controlled guilt. Dad kept his arms crossed, jaw tight, staring at the floor as if he could dig his way out. The judge read the charges. Vanessa pled guilty to possession and falsifying evidence. Then came the obstruction charges for my parents. Their lawyer argued for leniency, said it was family misunderstanding. A moment of panic. I almost laughed out loud. A moment of panic doesn't involve watching your other daughter get handcuffed and staying silent. During a recess, a familiar hand touched my shoulder. I turned and saw Grandpa, in his wrinkled brown jacket, his face calm but unreadable. He didn't say anything at first, just nodded, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. When court resumed, Grandpa did something no one expected. He asked to speak to the judge as a character witness. He cleared his throat and said, "I am the maternal grandfather of Clara Hale. I need the court to know that 3 weeks before this incident, I informed my daughter and her husband that I had revised my estate plan." My parents stiffened. Vanessa froze. "I told them I intended to leave the bulk of my estate to Clara," he continued calmly. "Not because she asked. Not because she's perfect. But because she's the only one who shows up when nothing is in it for her." The courtroom was silent, except for the judge's pen scratching. Then Grandpa turned toward my parents. And the week after that call, Clara was arrested in her own home. I got a second call, from my daughter, telling me to reconsider the will because Clara was now a criminal. The jury didn't move, but I could feel the shift in the room, the invisible tide turning. The trap wasn't just about humiliation. It was about money. By the time the gavel hit, my charges were gone. Vanessa was let out in cuffs. Sentenced to 3 years, minimum 2 before parole. Mom and Dad received 18 months each for obstruction and perjury. The family that once looked untouchable now looked small, broken, and entirely human. That night, I didn't go home. I went to Grandpa's yellow house, the one that smelled like toast and old wood. Rusty limped to the door and pressed his head against my leg, tail thumping softly. Grandpa poured me tea and said only one thing: "They can't erase you anymore." For the first time in my life, I believed it. The first morning after the trial, I woke up in Grandpa's house to the smell of toast and the soft whir of the old ceiling fan. No alarms. No tense footsteps in the hallway. No pretending to be invisible just to survive. Rusty slept curled against my legs, his fur warm, his tail twitching in some happy dream. I stared at the cracked ceiling and realized for the first time in years, I didn't wake up afraid. But freedom was quieter than I expected. Quieter and heavier. I thought I would feel triumphant, maybe even vengeful. Instead, I felt hollow, because winning meant I had no family to go back to. Not really. In the weeks that followed, the phone rang often. Unknown numbers. Blocked numbers. Once, a letter with my sister's handwriting arrived. No return address. I didn't open it. I didn't burn it either. I just slid it into a drawer, next to all the other pieces of a life I wasn't sure I wanted to revisit. Sometimes, late at night, I caught myself replaying the courtroom scene in my head, Vanessa's face crumbling, Mom's voice breaking when she said, "We were trying to protect the family." Dad's silence, heavier than any confession. I thought about forgiveness. But every time I pictured opening that door, I felt the hallway cuffs on my wrists again. And I realized forgiveness wasn't the same as freedom. Freedom was choosing silence without guilt. Grandpa never pushed me. He never said, "You should call them," or "Family is family." Instead, he handed me small, quiet pieces of my new life. A spare key to his house. A check for a community college class in criminal justice. Because he thought I'd be good at helping people who got lost in the system. And one evening, a plain envelope with a single line in his handwriting: "They can't hurt you anymore." 6 months later, I stood on the porch of the yellow house, watching Rusty sniff the evening air. He was slower now, but still loyal. Still mine. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who begged for attention that would never come. And I whispered to her, softly, like a secret only I could hear, "You made it out. We're free now." It happened on a Sunday morning. The sun poured through the thin curtains of Grandpa's yellow house, and Rusty was snoring by the radiator, old but still holding on. I was making tea when the doorbell rang. I froze. Almost no one ever came here unannounced. When I opened the door, my heart dropped. Mom was standing there. She looked smaller than I remembered, her posture bent, hair streaked with gray that hadn't been there last year. No makeup. No polished armor. "Clara," she whispered. Her voice cracked like glass under pressure. I didn't answer. I just leaned against the door frame, blocking the entrance, waiting. I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. Her hands trembled, clenching a folded letter. "But I needed to see you once, to see that you're okay." Behind her, an old taxi idled by the curb. She wasn't here to stay. She was here to confess, or to beg. I thought, if I kept the family together, if we hid the mess, it would be worth it. She swallowed hard, looking down at the steps. "I told myself you were strong, that you'd survive, that lying was protecting everyone." "Protecting who?" I finally asked. My voice was calm. Flat, not angry, just done. She flinched. "Not you." And that's the part I can't stop hearing in my head every night. I didn't know what I was expecting to feel. Anger, relief, maybe even pity. But all I felt was distance. Like she was speaking to someone I used to be, someone who didn't exist anymore. She held out the folded letter. It's from your sister. She's not doing well inside. She says she dreams about you every night. About Rusty. About the bear." Her voice cracked. "She says she's sorry." I looked at the letter in her hand but didn't take it. Not yet. Because in that moment, I realized something life-changing. I didn't need this apology to move on. I didn't need their guilt or their tears to be free. I had already left them behind the night I stopped begging to be chosen. I stepped back into the doorway and whispered, "Mom, I hope you find the life you can live with. But mine doesn't include you anymore." The words weren't cruel. They were true. I closed the door softly, not with anger, but with finality. Rusty lifted his head, sniffed the air, and then rested against my leg. Like he knew I'd just set us free for good. Behind that door was everything I'd survived. Inside this house was everything I'd built for myself. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the invisible daughter anymore. I felt like my own person. Life after them was quiet. Not the suffocating silence of my old bedroom, but a silence I chose. The kind that smelled like toast in the morning and felt like Rusty's fur under my hand at night. I fixed up Grandpa's yellow house piece by piece, painted the peeling shutters, cleaned out the attic filled with memories no one else cared to keep. Every corner I touched became mine, a home that didn't ask me to earn its love. Some nights, I sat on the porch swing and listened to the cicadas. Sometimes, I thought of Vanessa's laugh before the lies, of my mom braiding my hair when I was little, of the family dinners that almost felt whole. And I realized something. I didn't need to erase the good memories to heal from the bad. I just had to stop waiting for them to be the people I needed them to be. Months later, I received a call from the prison. They said Vanessa had listed me as an emergency contact. I didn't answer. I didn't delete the number either. I just let it ring and watched Rusty chase sunbeams across the kitchen floor. Because forgiveness, I learned, doesn't always mean going back. Sometimes, it just means letting go without looking over your shoulder. I started classes in criminal justice, the same system that almost swallowed me. Not for revenge, but because I knew what it felt like to be a kid with no one to believe you. I wanted to be the person I once needed. A voice in a room full of silence. One afternoon, as the semester began, Grandpa handed me a small envelope. Inside was a note in his handwriting. "You kept yourself. That's the part no one can take away." I read it twice and tucked it into my wallet. Because that was the truth I wanted to carry into the rest of my life. I didn't survive because my family changed. I survived because I stopped disappearing for people who would never see me. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to love you the most can be the ones who break you the deepest. But surviving isn't about fixing them. It's about choosing yourself when no one else will. Silence can be freedom, and letting go can be the most powerful act of self-love. Family isn't just blood, it's whoever shows up when the world turns against you. And the moment you stop begging for love that hurts you, you finally start to heal. Have you ever had to walk away from family just to protect your own heart? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one, and your voice matters here. New true life stories posted every day. Subscribe to Telling Story with me so you never miss a story that hits home.